What's your favorite hunting tradition? Is it the early morning coffee by the campfire? Or the stories shared while waiting in the blind? Maybe it's that special spot you go back to every season, just like the person who first took you hunting. Hunting season is finally here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has everything you need to gear up for less. From shotguns and rifles to feeders, game cameras, camo, and more, we've got the brands you trust and the prices you'll love. Plus, text HUNT24 to 22369 and get $20 off when you spend $100 on hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you shop. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Gear up, have fun, and make this season your best one yet.
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Back in the captain's chair after a couple days off. Appreciate Taylor Sharp for jumping in yesterday and piloting the ship for me. Glad to be back, and it's just one day, and then you go back to a weekend. So we can handle that. We'll be with you for the next 2 hours, and we are fired up for it. Got Jordan Kitchens and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Preston Guy with us in 15 minutes talking some Tiger football. Got to get you ready for the NFL weekend to come. I want to talk about Jim Larinaga up and quitting in December on a college basketball program. That's interesting. And then we got to preview LSU basketball against Mississippi Valley State. We'll talk Saints and Raiders as well. Plenty to do here on this Friday, and fired up to be here. If you're not working, thanks for locking us in. If you are, we'll get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. The LSU Tigers are leaving on a jet plane as we speak to Houston, Texas to start preparations for the Texas Bowl, which will be on New Year's Eve in the afternoon coming up next Tuesday. They'll play the Baylor Bears, who are winners of 6 in a row. And I think maybe the most interesting talking point here from an LSU perspective is the offensive line. We know that Will Campbell and Emory Jones have decided to forego the rest of their eligibility and get ready for the National Football League. I do not expect Garrett Dellinger to play in this game coming up on Tuesday. He's been coming back from that high ankle sprain, and I just don't know that he's going to give that a go. Miles Frazier has announced that he will be back for this game, and we're going to see, obviously, DJ Chester, who's been LSU's starting center the entire year. My expectation for this LSU offensive line is that Tyree Adams will play left tackle. We told you in fall camp that he was the 6th man on this LSU offensive line. I think he's the guy they're most comfortable with at left tackle. I think you'll see him there. The 2 guard spots, I believe, will be occupied by Paul Mabenga, who we saw filling in for Garrett Dellinger at the end of the season for 3 games. And then either Cohen Eccles or Bo Bordelon are your likely options there. DJ Chester will be your center, and Miles Frazier I expect to bump out and play right tackle in this game. It's a good opportunity for him, kind of put that on tape for NFL scouts that could be interested. He's a guard right now at the college level and probably is at the NFL level as well. But if he shows some versatility, that's always a good thing when the NFL is looking to put together a roster. So that's the group that I expect to see. And it's going to be interesting to see how they handle themselves, because LSU's offensive line, while maybe not as dominant as we had projected in August, was good this year in pass protection. LSU did a good job protecting the passer. Yes, Texas A&M got after him there a little bit in the second half. Yes, Garrett Nussmeier went down a few times in the Alabama game. Okay. Yeah, Florida got to him late in that game as well. It wasn't a perfect year by the LSU offensive line, but I promise you, those guys can pass protect, and they did a really good job the majority of the year in pass protection. You want to talk about the run game? I'm here to talk about the run game. It was not great, and we know that. But those guys were good in pass protection. We'll see what this next group looks like. We have lauded Brad Davis for a couple of years now after inheriting a terrible situation on LSU's offensive line and working to revamp that. It started with a couple of guys starting as true freshmen, Will Campbell and Emory Jones, and kind of rode them for 3 years. You went to the transfer portal and added Miles Frazier, who you got to start for 3 years. Gary Dellinger was a 4-star recruit you brought in, and that offensive line came together and was very good for the majority of this year, as I said. But what's next? What is waiting in the wings? And you look at this game, and it'll be an indication of how far along these young 4- and 5-star players are. DJ Chester is a 4-star. Cohen Eccles is a 4-star. Talk about Paul Mabenga, 4-star. Tyree Adams, 4-star. Weston Davis, 5-star. Ori Williams, 4-star. Like, you've brought in a lot of high-level players, top 100 type guys. It's their time to go play. And I'm curious just how noticeable taking out those All-Americans and potential first and second round draft picks, second-day draft picks, and plugging in these young pups, these true and redshirt freshmen who haven't been asked to do anything in their year or two on campus. The goal, likely for LSU, will be to run the football a little bit early. I know I can see you all rolling your eyes in the back of your head going, run the ball. This team can't run the ball. Well, they didn't run the ball well enough against Texas A&M. They didn't run the ball well enough against Alabama. They didn't run the ball well enough against USC. But there were points in the season where they did run the ball well. They did run the ball well against a good front at South Carolina. They did run the ball well against a good front at Oklahoma. They have at times run the ball pretty well, and I expect them to try to do that early. What you really don't want to do is to get into some 3rd and 10s, 2nd and 11s with tackles out there that haven't played very much. Tyree Adams hasn't played very much. Miles Frazier hasn't played tackle in his career. Asking those guys to pass protect continuously in obvious passing situations is not advantageous for LSU in any way, shape, or form. You had Emory Jones and Will Campbell out there. Sure, those guys can hold up. Those guys can handle themselves. I don't want that situation to present itself with these guys, especially early in the game. I expect LSU to run the ball early and often, and that is something that has worked against Baylor this year. Baylor finished 11th in the Big 12, which is 16 teams. They finished 11th in rushing defense. Listen to some of these numbers that Baylor has allowed on the ground. They allowed 292 yards. Sorry, that was total offense. Over to rushing. They allowed 170 yards on the ground to Utah. They allowed Air Force to run for 193 yards. They allowed Iowa State to run for 265. They allowed Texas Tech to run for $150. West Virginia ran it for 262 yards on this Baylor team. And then just in the season finale against Kansas, the Jayhawks ran for 211 yards. Caden Durham is got to be, I haven't talked to Caden, but he's got to be as healthy as he's been since he got hurt in that game. Who was that against? He got hurt in the last non-conference game.
Was it South Alabama?
Against South Alabama, that is correct. He dislocated those toes, and he didn't miss a lot of time, but he had an insert put into his shoe, and he got run down from behind a couple times. Like, I don't think Caden Durham was 100% healthy. And I don't know if he's 100% healthy this week, but you got to think having a month off can only help. And so I think Caden Durham should be as healthy as he's been. You'll get Josh Williams fighting as hard as he's fought for these 6 years. And I would expect LSU to come out and try to run the ball at Baylor. And if they can do that, everything kind of falls into place, and you should be efficient. If they can't, that could be an issue with those young pups trying to pass protect. Now, Garrett Nussmeier's, got a good head on his shoulders, and he can get the ball out as quickly as just about anybody in college football. There was a point in the midway point of the season where Garrett Nussmeier was second in the country in time it took to get the ball out of his hand. I mean, it was coming out quickly. But you don't have Kyron Lacey, and you don't have C.J. Daniels, and you don't have Mason Taylor. So you're trying to work in a fresh group of wide receivers that haven't played as much at the spots they're going to be playing in, led by Xavier Thomas and Aaron Anderson and, of course, Chris Hilton. They're veterans, at least. They're not young like these offensive linemen, but they're new to what they'll be asked to do in this game. And so Nussmeier can try to get it out pretty quickly, but still, Baylor knows that. Dave Aranda's not dumb. He knows that LSU's probably going to try to play quick game with a new offensive line up there, so he'll play for that. They'll cover for that, and I expect them to be ready for something like that. But I think LSU's entire offensive identity in this game needs to start with the running game. You leaned on your strength, which was pass protection, with your offensive line whole. This is a whole new group, and I think it reshapes the entire identity of the offense. So we'll see. Again, I expect you to see Tyree Adams, Cohen Eccles, Paul Mabenga, DJ Chester, and Miles Frazier out there, potentially Bo Bordelon, potentially Weston Davis here or there. But that's probably going to be your group. And to me, that's the most interesting thing that we'll look at in this game. I'm not that curious about what Garrett Nussmeier does in this game. I know what Garrett Nussmeier is. I'm not that curious on how Aaron Anderson looks in this game. I'm not that curious about what Whit Weeks looks like out there, or how well that Braden Swinson gets after the passer. Like that, these things, I know these things. We're already kind of looking for 2025. And the way that we've shaped the college football calendar now, where we tell players, hey, in December, you get out of Dodge, like the team that played for 12 games no longer really exists, it all kind of starts pointing to next year if you're not in the playoff. So for me, like, I'm starting to look at these offensive linemen. LSU has gone and added Braylon Moore, and he'll be very likely your starting center next year. And they're not done in the portal. They will get a tackle in the transfer portal. I can assure you of that.
What's your favorite hunting tradition? Is it the early morning coffee by the campfire, or the stories shared while waiting in the blind? Maybe it's that special spot you go back to every season, just like the person who first took you hunting. Hunting season is finally here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has everything you need to gear up for less. From shotguns and rifles to feeders, game cameras, camo, and more, we've got the brands you trust and the prices you'll love. Plus, text HUNT24 to 22369 and get $20 off when you spend $100 on hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you shop. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Gear up, have fun, and make this season your best one yet.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
But these are the guys that they've developed in the pipeline. That's part of developing a really good football program, is developing the high school ranks. They're going to be up in this game against the Baylor front that's not that great. I went through Baylor as a whole a couple of weeks ago, right when the game was announced, and their offensive numbers are significantly better than their defensive numbers thus far. It's not a great defense, so LSU's not going into a pressure cooker here. You're facing a pretty average unit. I'm very curious to see how the LSU offensive linemen hold up in the game coming up on Tuesday. That's our opening drive presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge. Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. We'll step aside, take a timeout, and when we come back, Preston Guy from TigerBait.com. We'll continue talking a little LSU football here on this Friday. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
That rejoin just gets me every time. The grease bubbling, Corks rocks. Looking for a good po' boy. It's the holiday season in the Baton Rouge area. Corks serve you up an awesome fried shrimp po' boy, catfish po' boy as well. And right there on Government between Foster and Jefferson, they bring you our Friday shows each and every week. CorksFishandShrimp.com is the website. The other thing we do every single Friday is talk to our guy, Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. Preston, Merry Christmas. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, man? Nice to see you this Christmas week.
It was. It's always a pleasure. Let's talk a little football here. What's your excitement level for the Texas Bowl this year?
It'll be fun to watch a lot of new guys stepping up into new roles. I'd be lying if I'm not a little worried about the matchup, especially talking with, some of our Baylor guys. They're fired up for this. And basically, Baylor has no one out. Meanwhile, LSU is down to one tight end. You've got 4 new offensive linemen in new positions. You basically only have 3 wide receivers who have played any substantial snaps for you. To say LSU is thin for this bowl game, I think would be a bit of an understatement. Meanwhile, Baylor's coming in full force. So, it is exciting to see can these young guys step up and produce in roles and give us a little preview into next year.
How many offensive linemen that are going to play in this game for LSU do you feel confident will start against Clemson?
That's a tricky question, Hunt.
It is. That's why I asked.
Well, and does their current position, does that count?
Yeah, they can move. I mean, you're obviously talking about Chester there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I'm almost certain DJ Chester will not be your starting center next year. That's not to say he won't start. Tyree Adams would be a pretty good bet to be your starting left tackle, in my opinion. Other than that, I mean, because you got there's a good chance this Josh Thompson kid from Northwestern State comes to LSU, and he's big. That's probably a right tackle for you. You're talking about, but I mean, Hunt. The real answer is until I see this transfer portal, the way things shake out, I really don't want to go too deep diving into guessing who's going to be where because, I mean, things can change so rapidly.
How's your confidence level in Brad Davis developing some of these young players? I mean, these are all guys that were 4- and 5-star recruits. Your Weston Davis, Cohen Eccles, Tyree Adams, Paul Mabenga, DJ Chester. I mean, these were heralded guys. How do you feel about their future?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I had the confidence in Brad Davis that I had 365 days ago. But, there was a real learning curve for Brad Davis this year in terms of run blocking. And look, offensive line was still pretty good at pass blocking this year. There's no doubt about that. But run blocking was just not there this year. And, they've done a really good job recruiting. They're going to bring in a very strong offensive line class, possibly the strongest offensive line class in the country. And look, don't sleep on Solomon Thomas next year. He's a guy who will push for starting reps. He's arguably the best interior offensive lineman in the country, and I don't think anything, Mabenga and company, sold you this year is dead set on, penciling in for a role next year. So we'll see. I still think Brad Davis is a good offensive line coach. I still like what he does. I just think that this particular offensive line didn't have a good run blocking skill set this year, and we'll see what the guys bring next year. But they definitely he's got a lot of work cut out for him. There's no doubt about it.
How you feel about Trey Green after one season in purple and gold? We'll obviously him a lot come Tuesday.
Yeah, I would have liked to see him, get some more consistent reps throughout the year. You understand why Mason Taylor, took the lion's share of those reps. And Mason Taylor caught a lot of balls this year. It's not like, Trey Green just came in and had some walk-on beat him out. He was there, and he had to compete with Pimpton, and he had to compete with him, and now it'll be the Trey Green show. At least for the ball game, it'll be before the Bauer kid from Oklahoma comes in. But we'll get a really good look at him. I'm more so interested to see how does he block? How does he play the full position of tight end? Because they've been using him as, basically a big-bodied receiver this year. I'm really interested to see how he plays the complete role of tight end because boy, they really don't have another tight end. And, one thing we were talking about, Bo Bordelon is one of the reserve tight ends that they use situationally. He's going to be your starting right guard, or at least it looks like he'll be your starting right guard with Miles Frazier sliding out to right tackle. I don't want to be too concrete on any of this because They haven't formally announced it. They may, we've seen a couple videos. I don't want to go too deep into those videos, but that'll be an interesting twist. Who is your second tight end for this bowl game?
It's interesting. They're a little thin, but that's just the way it goes in this era of college football. Now, are you a little surprised, disappointed? I'm not sure what adjective I want to use there, that Deshaun Spears didn't force his way to the field late in the season?
Yeah, I would have liked to see him develop a little better throughout the season. In fact, we were watching him in spring, and we see the athletic potential, and he started, I believe, as early as the UCLA game, if I'm not mistaken.
He got a ton of reps before the first bye, and then they decided against Ole Miss that they were going to go with the older guys, and they never went back.
Right. So, point being is that trajectory was heading up. He didn't play quite as well as we expected him to, but they went with veteran guys, and it's disappointing that as weak as LSU safeties were, and as highly recruited as he was, and how much talent he clearly has, that he wasn't able to secure a starting spot, given that Jordan Gilbert and Sage Ryan just were not good this year. So a little frustrating and disappointing there, but I'd say he'll probably be your starting safety for the bowl game this week, and we'll get a real good look at him and possibly into the future. Is he going to be able to be good enough as a true sophomore to be your starting safety, or are you going to have to look to other guys? Maybe Delane from Virginia Tech take some reps at safety if he, does indeed decide to stick around to LSU. He has till January 15th to make that 100% official. He did sign the NLI, the letter of intent, but that being said, he could still go pro. Or do you look at a guy like DJ Pickett? It'll be interesting to see what they do there.
I've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about how I remember vividly going out to LSU football practice and just seeing the talent and the confidence level and the swagger of the defensive backs. And that just hasn't been the case the last couple of years. Do you feel like, looking at the transfer portal, you just mentioned Pickett, that's on its way back under Corey Raymond?
Yeah, it's certainly at the recruiting. And, we'll see on the development end of that. And another underrated element of that in these days is the retention element. Because, you got to bring guys in and you got to keep them around, and then you have to develop them. So, obviously, during Corey Raymond's entire tenure at LSU previously, he was an elite recruiter. Even when LSU was struggling down the stretch, he brought in back-to-back number one corners in the country in Stingley and, Ricks.
Yeah, Eli Ricks.
But, neither one of them hardly played a game after 2021. So, you got to recruit these guys and get them actually playing well on the field. So he certainly is doing phase one of that, of bringing in these highly talented guys. There's a lot of players that I'm seeing coming in, Jakeem Jackson, Delane, Pickett, where I'm like, yeah, I could see why those guys could be elite corners next season. But you got to do that phase two. You got to develop them, and you got to keep them on the team.
How much different are your personal expectations for LSU's 2025 season today than they were before the portal opened?
Yeah, I would say a good bit different. I remember getting into some pretty heated debates, telling people, hey, man, let's wait and see how this portal goes down for LSU, because
what's your favorite hunting tradition? Is it the early morning coffee by the campfire, or the stories shared while waiting in the blind? Maybe it's that special spot you go back to every season, just like the person who first took you hunting. Hunting season is finally here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has everything you need to gear up for less. From shotguns and rifles to feeders, game cameras, camo, and more, we've got the brands you trust and the prices you'll love. Plus, text HUNT24 to 22369 and get $20 off when you spend $100 on hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you shop. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Gear up, have fun, and make this season your best one yet.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Projecting out the roster, after that Oklahoma game, it didn't look great, especially being that you had lost, Bryce Underwood, who was basically your big hope for the future. Well, lo and behold, LSU has turned it up another notch in the transfer portal and brings in arguably the best class in the country. Obviously, Texas Tech is the only class rated higher for the services, but it's because they have 4 more players than LSU. So we'll see how those die actually land. At this point, I really want to see, again, I know you hate to hear this, well, let's wait and see, but honestly, you really do have to wait and see because more good players are going to enter the portal, and LSU will land more good players. Maybe Josh Thompson, maybe we hear that pretty soon, and that in and of itself changes how the roster looks. I would say that expectations are that LSU makes the playoffs with this kind of roster and the investments they've made. I think that's a fair assessment.
A college football playoff, who you like to win the whole thing?
Man, first off, it seems like the field is pretty weak this year, doesn't it? I mean, I feel like there's not a team in the country who would have won last year or, I think about, like that 2019 season. Is there a team beating 2019 Bama with Tua? Not even close. I think they're curb stomping everybody. So I think it's a pretty weak field this year. I think we can thank NIL and the transfer portal for that. But I'll take Oregon. We're talking about the only undefeated team. Your 2 seed is a 2-loss team in this tournament. So that's just how far ahead they are of everybody. Consistent. I love what Lanning is doing. He does have the toughest path, but if you're going to win it anyways, you might as well knock Ohio State out early.
We shall see. Tell everybody what's coming up on Tiger Bait. I know it's not in season anymore. So what do y'all got? What do y'all got going on?
Yeah, look, for us, it's almost like the biggest part of the season is once the regular season ends, once you get signing day and you get portal news. This is it's definitely not a slow time for us yet. My live show is going to go through the whole month of January, so you can catch up with me every Monday night. And Zach Nagy, we'll be doing our bowl preview. We're going to have one of our Tiger Bait correspondents who actually covers the Baylor site come talk to us. He knows both teams very well, so we'll talk about that tomorrow night. And then Mike Scarborough, Buddy Sanji doing their thing Wednesday night, and we'll have one last post-game show. And then come February, I will after that formal signing day, which not much goes down anymore on that signing day, I will, end my football-only show until August.
There you go. We'll chat with you next week, Preston. We appreciate the time.
Hunt, see you then.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, with us each and every Friday. If you're looking for our LSU content, you can always find it on YouTube or in podcast form, Hunt on LSU. You just search whatever you are. Listen to your sound or on YouTube, Hunt on LSU should pop up. Like, subscribe, rate, review, and get it right to your homepage with the touch of a button. We'll come back and get you ready for the NFL weekend in Week 17. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car online is on the lot. Every car on the lot is online. GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Maybe a great time to get in the market for a vehicle. Start of the year. Just put Genesis on your list. If you're buying a car in Baton Rouge, you're probably going to be on Airline Highway anyway. Might as well make one more stop. They're right there near PQ, across from Women's Hospital. When you think Genesis, think luxury. When you think luxury, don't immediately say, it's out of my price range. Give it a look. It's unbelievable vehicles at reasonable prices. And some of the perks that come with being a Genesis driver include 3 years of complimentary maintenance, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and some of the safest cars on the road. Every car in the line was given the IIHA top safety pick. Some were top safety picks plus. Get on by Genesis of Baton Rouge, airline at PQ, or check them out online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
We got to lock in coming up in 30 minutes. We're talking LSU, Mississippi Valley State hoops. Coming at you Sunday matinee from the PMAC. Don't miss that. I actually do have some things I want to talk about with this basketball team. I wrote a story for LouisianaSports.net yesterday that was talking about whether or not LSU would or would not make the tournament. And I gave some reasons why they will, some reasons why they won't. And I laid that out over, if you want to read it, you can at LouisianaSports.net, but I'll talk about it coming up in 30 minutes as well. Got to get you ready for the Saints and the Raiders. We'll chat about that in hour number 2. And Jim Larinaga, Miami's basketball coach, if you missed this over the holidays, hustle and bustle, just bailed. I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And that's not unlike Tony Bennett, not unlike Nick Saban, not unlike Chip Kelly. A lot of folks that have decided they don't want to do it. I'll have some thoughts on that entire situation coming up in the next segment. But it is week 17 in the National Football League. They played back on Wednesday for Christmas. They played Thursday Night Football. They will play tomorrow on Saturday. They'll play on Sunday as well. They'll play on Monday as well. They're all over the calendar. It's time to get you ready for NFL Week 17. Let's start in Tier 4 with the worst action of the week. It's the Titans and the Jags. There's a little bit of a local angle here. Brian Thomas Jr. has already set Jacksonville Jaguars rookie records for catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns. He has had a fantastic rookie campaign for a bad football team there in Jacksonville. That's the only game in Tier 4, which is good news. All the rest is a little bit better than that. Tier 3 is our heaviest dose of the week. The Chargers are at the Patriots. The Chargers win. They are in the playoff. Also, Justin Herbert, 153 yards away from passing Peyton Manning for the most yards ever by an NFL quarterback in 5 seasons, first 5 seasons. Jets are at the Bills, divisional matchup. Aaron Rodgers needs 1 touchdown to become the 5th NFL quarterback to 500 touchdown passes. Listen to these statistics, which won't surprise you at all, but they're jarring. Bills 23-5 in the division since 2020. That's second best to the Chiefs over that time. 23-5. The Jets 5-23. They are the worst in the NFL in divisional action since 2020. The Colts are at the Giants. Giants have lost 10 in a row. That is the most in the history of that storied franchise. They can make more history, though, coming up on Sunday. That could be the first team in the history of the National Football League to go 0-9 at home in a season. Of course, you just added the extra game that gives half the league a 9th home game. They could go 0-9 if they lose this one to the Colts. Panthers are at the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield leads the NFC in touchdown passes. If the Bucs lose to the Panthers in this game and Atlanta wins, the Falcons win the NFC South. Dolphins are at the Browns. The Dolphins lose, they are out. Also, if the Chargers and Broncos win, the Dolphins are out. They'll travel to Cleveland. Tier 2, some better football for this one. The Broncos are at the Bengals. Jamar Chase trying to become the 5th wide receiver in NFL history since 1970 when they started keeping this stuff up to win the Triple Crown. That's pretty impressive stuff, what Jamar is doing up there with Joe. He's going to have a tough time potentially in this game, though, because Pat Surtain Jr. leads all cornerbacks in the NFL in expected points added when targeted. That's an advanced metric that just means how do you do in coverage. Pat Surtain does pretty well. I'm sure he and Jamar Chase will get to know each other quite well over the weekend. The Cardinals are at the Rams. The Cardinals are eliminated from the playoffs, but the Rams are surging. They've won 4 in a row to go from 5-6 to 9-6. They're on the precipice of another playoff berth. The Cowboys are at the Eagles. Only 3 players have posted double-digit sacks their first 4 seasons in the NFL. Those 3, Dwight Freeney, Derek Thomas, and Reggie White. They are all in the Hall of Fame. Micah Parsons would join that group if he gets half a sack over the next 2 weeks. Falcons are at the Commanders. See if Jaden Daniels and company can keep their run rolling. As I mentioned, the Falcons are close to winning the NFC South as the Bucs continue their free fall. We'll see if they can do that in the nation's capital. I don't think they will. I think the Commanders will win that football game. And Tier 1, only one game this week that I've got at the top of the top. The Packers are at the Vikings. The Packers are 11-4. Vikings are 13-2. Both of these teams have clinched playoff spots. Sam Darnold could become the first quarterback ever to win 14 games in his first year with a new team. For those gamblers out there, the Packers have covered 4 straight weeks. That is your look at NFL Week 17. Jordan Kitchens, as you look at the menu here of National Football League games, do you care about the NFC South Championship being decided? Or are you more so looking at your fantasy squad? What are we looking at for Week 17 here on this schedule?
Well, I hate to say it, but ever since I've got knocked out the fantasy playoffs,
Yes.
And the Saints have got embarrassed.
Yes, they did. They were embarrassed in Green Bay on national
Forget
television.
embarrassed. They actually got pants, literally.
Yeah, it was
pulled their
bad.
pants down on national television. I'm checked out. Like, I've been checked out.
Well, you can't go over to the Pelicans. You can't lock in on that.
I have nothing.
You can do gardening now. What are you
Honestly,
looking into?
I've been thinking about getting a guitar or something. You know, I need a hobby because my sports teams are trash. So
it's a tortured existence to pull for sports teams.
Let me tell you how torturous it is.
Well, please tell me.
The fact that the Pelicans have been playing since October and have the same amount of wins as the New Orleans Saints right now.
Yeah,
that's torturous.
That's not good. Yeah, the Pels are not good. I'll tell you, for me, I can't wait to watch Packers and Vikings. The Vikings are the quietest 13-2. No one talks about the Vikings. I don't. You got Darnold playing well. They got a really good coach. I mean, Jefferson's fantastic.
Amazing.
What's your favorite hunting tradition? Is it the early morning coffee by the campfire, or the stories shared while waiting in the blind? Maybe it's that special spot you go back to every season, just like the person who first took you hunting. Hunting season is finally here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has everything you need to gear up for less. From shotguns and rifles to feeders, game cameras, camo, and more, we've got the brands you trust and the prices you'll love. Plus, text HUNT24 to 22369 and get $20 off when you spend $100 on hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you shop. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Gear up, have fun, and make this season your best one yet.
Every day when you log into ChumbaCasino.com, the ultimate online social casino, you get a free daily bonus. Imagine if you got daily bonuses in other parts of your life.
I chose French fries over loaded French fries.
I asked Stuart from accounting about his weekend, even though I don't care.
I updated my operating system without having to call tech support.
Collect your free daily bonus at ChumbaCasino.com now. And live the Chumba life. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
It's amazing what happens when you get a good football coach. Things can tend to happen.
Exactly.
But they were not on my radar at all. I actually was banging the drum of the Bears preseason because I'm looking at this. I'm going, okay, you got DJ Moore, and okay, you go get Keenan Allen, and you go draft Rome Odunze. You got Cole Kmet at tight end, and you bring in Caleb Williams, who we all think is good. Like that should be. And the Bears always have a good defense. Even the teams that are terrible, they have a good defense. And the Bears just have completely imploded and lost 9 games in a row. And the Vikings have surged. And that division, with 3 teams that already have double-digit wins, it's nuts how good the NFC North is.
And the Packers are scary. And they're like the 3rd best team in the division.
Because the Packers can run the ball. That's what I said. I mean, it feels like that was 4 months ago when the Saints played the Packers. So much has happened since then. But, like, when I previewed that game, I was like, I don't like this very much because the Packers can run the ball and the Saints can't stop the run. And the Packers, not only did they run the ball, they did whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted in that game against New Orleans. That's not a real strong barometer for success, how well you fare against the Saints. But it's good football teams there. So do you hate the Buccaneers as much as you hate the Falcons?
Well, no, not at all. And honestly,
so you want the Bucs to win the division?
Oh yeah, Falcons? Ew, no way. No. And because they're kind of on the same timeline as the Saints, like they got an old quarterback they gave a lot of money to and all that, so they're kind of on the same path as us. Honestly, the real winner of the division is Bryce Young. Not only did he, save his career. You got Dennis Allen fired. So I'm forever indebted to Bryce Young. Shout out Bryce Young, man. A savior.
I didn't see that coming. That was an uppercut I did not see coming. I thought you were going to talk about how Bryce Young's really turned it around this season. He's playing better. And then he goes, he got Dennis Allen fired just immediately.
He's a legend. No free food for Bryce Young when it comes to New Orleans.
Okay, that's well said. And I guess Saints fans now, if you truly are pulling against Atlanta and that's your main motive here, you can certainly pull against them this week as they'll play Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in our nation's capital. I didn't mention earlier that Titans-Jags does have some number 1 pick capabilities there. They're both under 25% to get it, but the winner is completely eliminated from getting that pick. The loser remains in the mix here. So that's your look at NFL Week 17. We got a lot to do coming up here to close out the hour, as well as in hour number 2. Got to talk some hoops. Got to talk Saints and Raiders as well. Maybe there are some other bowl games we'll discuss. And I got to talk to you about Jim Larinaga hanging him up mid-season. So we'll do that. It's kind of a temperature of the landscape of college sports at this point. So let's step aside, take a time out. We'll come back and close out hour number 1 coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. Got all their catering packages right there on the menu. I tell you that every single week, but if you're looking to feed your office at the end of the year, got a birthday party coming up, or you just got a big tailgate party, game watching party for the playoff games coming up, and you're going to feed folks in bulk, Corks is fantastic at it. They can get you those big trays of the crispy fried catfish, big trays of those shoestring fries, those jumbo Gulf shrimp, and they can get your sauces in there as well. They got all your traditionals, your cocktail, tartar sauce. They also got Cork sauce, which is fantastic as well. So if you're looking to feed in bulk, you can do that with our friends over at Corks. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. They bring you our Friday shows each and every week. Quick scoreboard update from the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Who could forget it? Navy and Oklahoma are knotted at 14. The Sooners scored 14 points in the first quarter, jumped out to that 14-0 lead, but they haven't been able to score since, and Navy's put a couple of touchdowns on the board. Now Navy has the football. It's 4th and 3. They're on the Oklahoma 22 with 6 minutes to play in the ball game, so potentially Navy could kick a go-ahead field goal here, or could go for it, as the service academies often do. But that game is close late. There's still more action to come here on this Friday. Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt. That's a real nerdy game there. 2:30 kickoff on ESPN. Texas Tech and Arkansas tonight at 6 o'clock. Syracuse at Washington State. Syracuse and Washington State. Then USC and Texas A&M are at 9:30 tonight in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Of course, Miller Moss has moved on from USC. If you'll remember the name of Zachariah Branch, who we talked about a bunch, he's moved on as well. They're hemorrhaging players at Southern Cal, and I don't know if Lincoln Riley is going to be able to turn the tide on this thing. It just doesn't feel that way to me. Just a bad loss by LSU to start the season, quite frankly. But USC right back in Allegiant Stadium for the nightcap tonight. Texas A&M's a 3-point favorite in that game. All right, I wanted to close out the hour here talking about Jim Larinaga's abrupt decision to retire from coaching and leave Miami in late December while he's coaching the team. And he said very bluntly in that press conference that he called to announce his retirement that, I realized that this was a different world, and I was shocked when we went to the Final Four and then 8 guys said they had to go in the transfer portal. And I asked, don't you like it here? Yeah, Miami's fantastic. It's a great place. But the only way to create the opportunity to earn money is to get in the transfer portal and create a bidding war. And he just didn't like that. And I get it. I understand where Jim Larinaga is coming from. But I also want to just kind of assess the situation fully. Jim Larinaga, left George Mason, who had taken to the Final Four, for that job at Miami. And you would call that an upward move in the sport. And Jim Larinaga went to the Final Four on the back of a team that was paid for out of the transfer portal. We remember that. Kansas State's best guard went down there to play and got $1 million. And he used that part of the system to create success. He just didn't like it when it flipped on itself. And I get it. I get where he's coming from. But, you got to assess it honestly. And I have said this pretty consistently. I will not go as far as to say that this is a perfect system and that everybody just needs to quit whining about it. I'm not going to go that far. I think that there are some issues here. But I also think that you're kind of wasting your time fighting too hard against it. You just need to either embrace it or bail. And look, we've seen guys bail. Nick Saban bailed. Tony Bennett in Virginia bailed. Jim Larinaga just bailed. Chip Kelly running the show at UCLA, now I'll go call plays. Bailed. And guys have decided it's not for them. And I understand that. And so I think I can say two things at the same time. I can say that this is really difficult for coaches. It is really difficult. And failing to acknowledge that, I think, is disingenuous. Like, if you can't look at this system and go, this makes coaching a really difficult job. I think basketball is a little bit easier than football, because if you're coaching at Marshall and 35 or 40 guys leave your football team, it's just hard to go get 40 guys. Like, that's a hard thing to do. Basketball, you need 6. You can probably go get 6. And in baseball, you got to go get 7 or 8. You can go get 7 or 8. Football, you got to go get 30. Like, that's a hard thing to do. And having to overhaul the entirety of your roster every single year is very difficult. But coaches have been doing this for years. Coaches have been program hopping for years. Coaches have left teams prior to championship games before. And now players get that opportunity. And you're never going to turn this spigot off of cash. Like, once the Supreme Court says you are allowed to get paid for your name, image, and likeness, even if you're an amateur athlete, you can't turn that off. You can't put that back in the box. So this is the way that it's going to be. It's just hard. And that's why these coaches are handsomely paid. And it's why you can actually turn things around really quickly if you've got an aggressive donor base. I think the flaw here is that, the skill of recruiting has been diminished greatly. But you know what? It's just roster acquisition. How you do it is kind of irrelevant. What team do you put on the field? What team do you put on the floor? So I understand where Jim Larrañaga is coming from, but he used this system to make a lot of money and to win a lot of games. And now he's decided that he doesn't want to be a part of it. And there's no crime, but you got to acknowledge that when you step away. I think, and he's not going to phrase it this way, and no coach, I guess, ever would, but I would have been more on Jim Larrañaga's side if the press conference sounded something like this. Yeah, I've been at this a long time. I'm getting a little bit older, and the effort that it takes to re-recruit your roster all year, every year, and to build something brand new each and every year is just more than I'm willing to put in at this point. And I probably preferred the old system where folks were more loyal to a program as opposed to pursuing finances at every turn. But I understand that this is the way that it is now, and I'm just not really cut out for it right now. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to step away. If you said that, I'd be like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I get it. But that's not the way he phrased it. He basically said, this is broken, I hate this, and I don't want to deal with it. And didn't acknowledge the fact that, hey, you used the portal to get to the Final Four. You used George Mason as a stepping stone to Miami to bigger and better things for more money and better opportunity. Like, you did that, so now the players are getting that opportunity. It's just kind of how that works. And I guess usually it's better for eyeballs and ears for me to rant and rave and scream and say how this guy's an idiot. And I don't think that's necessarily the case here. I think I could be pretty level-headed about it and just suggest, like, I understand why you would want to step away, but at least acknowledge the other side of it. And I don't know that he necessarily did. Most people fall in two camps. This is awesome player empowerment. They've been doing things for years without being compensated for it. Hell yeah, transfer all you want, get all the money you want. That's part. And then there's some people who say, this is so stupid, you've broken sports. And I'm not really in any of those camps. I look at it and I go, well, the portal's kind of interesting for me as a fan and as someone who covers this because it creates news. Unless you is busy in the transfer portal and you're overhauling your roster, and that's interesting to me. And I think it is good that players can make some money for doing some things on and off the playing field. But I acknowledge that it's a difficult expectation of these football coaches to maintain a roster when you just have open walls and you got dozens coming out and you got to bring dozens more in. It's just, that's hard. It's hard for these coaches to try to coach a bowl game while you're overhauling next year's roster. It's hard to convince guys to stay here when your donor base doesn't spend as much money. Like, it's a difficult thing, but they're paid handsomely for it. We'll see if that continues, if the salaries keep escalating as now you realize you do have to spend money to build your roster. but they get paid well to do it. And if you age out of it and decide you don't want to do it like Jim Larinaga did, that's fine. But there's somebody who will come in and try to do it. I heard a coach in collegiate athletics say over the past week, like, if you spend a lot of time complaining about the system, you're just wasting time because it is what it is. You got to go play the game. And I think LSU is fully committed now to playing the game. I don't know that they were a year ago, especially on the football side. But you can believe that Matt McMahon's in on the transfer portal and Kim Mulkey's in on the transfer portal, and certainly Jay Johnson's in on the transfer portal. And I think that LSU's programs have, got this thing moving in the right direction. It's just the way it is. And to me, personally, as a fan, like, once they come out of that tunnel in that purple and gold uniform, no matter the sport, like, I'm not really concerned with who's making what in NIL or how you got that guy or how much he loves LSU compared to how much I love LSU. Just get the game started. I know who to pull for. Like, that's as simple as I can be to put it. So I wanted to touch on that here to finish up our number one on this Friday. We're brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. In hour two, we're going to talk a little bit of basketball. We'll talk Saints Raiders as well and get you ready for the weekend that is to come. Reminder that Matt Moscona is out this week for AFR, so Matt Musso will be in the captain's chair one more time from 3 to 6. So he'll be the one driving you home. He'll be driving me to New Orleans. That's where I'm headed tonight after we punch the clock here this evening. We got one more hour to go. We'll step aside for Sports Center, get your national headlines, and we'll be back with more on a Friday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, if you moved a couple years ago, locked in a great interest rate, and you're not in a hurry to move, that doesn't mean you can't improve your living situation. How about a custom closet? Completely customized to your specifications. Maybe it's a full-scale renovation. David Vaughn and his team can do that. It'll be the only call you make. Maybe it's not. It's just something where you use the space that you got a little bit more efficiently. Go to the website, OneBathAndClosets.com, and see some of the pictures of their fantastic work. It is functional, it is customized, and it all looks fantastic. I can promise you this, David and his team are not going to come back 3 weeks later because something's malfunctioned. No, they're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. I always invite you to go to the website and get that free consultation. They're online at OneBathAndClosets.com. Get that process started today with David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets, all online at OneBathAndClosets.com.
What's your favorite hunting tradition? Is it the early morning coffee by the campfire or the stories shared while waiting in the blind? Maybe it's that special spot you go back to every season, just like the person who first took you hunting. Hunting season is finally here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has everything you need to gear up for less. From shotguns and rifles to feeders, game cameras, camo, and more, we've got the brands you trust and the prices you'll love. Plus, text HUNT24 to 22369 and get $20 off when you spend $100 on hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you shop. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Gear up, have fun, and make this season your best one yet.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.